Hello friends, and once again a very warm welcome to one and all present over there. Right, so we are again back with some questions. Right now I can see that over the PPT there is JEE Advanced pattern question, and we are going to solve these questions together. Right, till now we have covered the theory part of the chapter, we have covered the CBSE question, the JEE Mains question, the NEET question, and now we will be doing the JEE Advanced question, right? So basically we are moving step by step. As you know that the pattern of question, the level of question increases step by step. So now if you are able to do the attempt, if you are able to attempt the CBSE question very easily, if you are able to attempt the NEET question, the main question very easily, then congratulations to you. You are now able to do the advanced question in a very easy manner, right? So now we will start and look at the very first question of the session. So the first question, so let me just tell you, we are dealing with the question from the chapter Nuclei, which is the 13th chapter of your NCERT. You have to focus on this because you are going to see whether it is advanced or whether it is JEE Main. You are going to face the question which will be coming from the radioactivity and basically from the nuclei. In the, if I'll talk about the chapter Atom, in that you will see that there are not much questions, but the difficulty level arises when you comes to the nuclei, when you comes to the radioactivity. So that means you have to learn this chapter by your heart. You are able to see one or two questions from this chapter, might be it can be three, but what is the purpose of giving question from this chapter? Because this is an important chapter. This radioactivity topic, that half-life, it becomes the major portion of your syllabus from this chapter. So it carries a little bit good marks, so that means you have to prepare pretty well for this chapter. Let me just begin with the question number 1. Okay, so we are having our question number 1 before us. So we are having the binding energy per nucleon. This is the binding energy per nucleon versus the mass number curve. Yeah, we can see this graph over here. And W, X, Y and Z are 4 nuclei indicated on the curve. Let me just point it out for you. You can see this is Y, this is Z, this is X and this is W, right? So you can see these 4 before you. And also what you have to observe in this graph, that mass number is correspondingly matching with the binding energy per nucleon. This is your binding energy per nucleon, this is your mass number. Let us just see what are they asking. The process that would release energy is which one? We have to choose any one correct answer, and so we have to tell them which one option is the correct answer. From 1 to 3 you are going to see only one option correct type question. So from here we will see. Let's start with the option number A. We are going to solve one by one to all the parts. Let me just start with this question. This is saying Y is converting into 2Z. Let me just tell you one thing. If they are asking us in which process energy would be released, so let me just tell you, energy will be released in that process where the binding energy of reactants would be less than the binding energy of products. Or you can say it in the reverse manner, you can say that the energy would be released in that process where the binding energy of reactants will be, where the binding energy of products will be more. Or you can say it in another way, that energy will be released in that process wherever the binding energy will be increased. So if I am saying that binding energy is increased, that means if you were earlier having reactants, now you are having products. That means products must be having higher energy than reactants. So now let us just check, this is the reactant, this is the product. So let us just now check what is the binding energy in this case. Okay, first of all, let me just tell you one thing. We have been given the graph of binding energy per nucleon versus the mass number. This is not binding energy, this is binding energy per nucleon. So, if we want to find the binding energy, what we should do? Binding energy per nucleon multiplied by per nucleon multiplied by the mass number. This will be your formula for binding energy. And you have to use this formula to find out the binding energy in all the cases. Because I am considering the first option, that is Y is converting to 2Z. So let me just see what is the binding energy of products. The reactant. Let me just consider first of all the reactant. And reactant is what? Reactant is Y here. Now let us just consider what should be the binding energy of Y. To find out the binding energy of Y, what I have to do? Just look at this formula. Multiply the binding energy per nucleon with the mass number. So the mass number corresponding to Y is 60. The binding energy per nucleon is 8.5. So multiply this 8.5 with 60. What you will be having? As 510. This is your binding energy of reactant. Now let me just find out the binding energy for product. Here you can see the product is 2Z. So first of all we can write over here 2. Now Z. Binding energy of Z will be, where is Z? Yeah, this is Z. So binding energy in the case of Z will be 30 multiplied by 5. So you have to multiply 30 multiplied by 5. So 150 into 2, that is 300. Now you will see here the binding energy of products is less than the binding energy of reactant. So that means it cannot be the correct answer, because we know that the correct answer will be that in which the binding energy of product will be higher than the binding energy of reactant. So this will be, let me just cross it out. This is the wrong option. Now let us just check out which will be the correct option then. Let me just consider the case for W equals to 2Y. W is converting into 2Y. So let us just see. Now in this case, binding energy for reactant, that means W, it will be, let us just now look for the W. This is W, and the corresponding binding energy per nucleon is 7.5 and the mass number is 120. So what we have to do? We have to multiply this 120 by 7.5. So what you have to do? It will come out to be 900. This is the binding energy of reactant. Now let me just find out what will be the binding energy of product. So the binding energy of product which is 2Y. For the Y, we have to again back to the graph. Let us come back. You can see here Y is having corresponding mass number as 60 and the binding energy per nucleon as 8.5. So multiply this 8.5 by 60 into 60. You will be having 510 multiplied by this 2. 8.5 multiplied 60 is 510 and 510 multiplied 2 will be 1020. That means you have seen that binding energy of product has come out to be binding energy of reactant. In this case, we can say that energy is going to released. So that means this is the correct option. Again, for our convenience, we can just check it out whether these options are wrong or right. So let me just consider this option. W is converting into X plus Z. So W is having 120 into 7.5 as the mass number, as the binding energy. So let me just remove it from here. the third option, that is C, W is converting to X plus Z. Now your W is having 120 into 7.5. So the binding energy of reactant is 120 into 7.5, that is 900. Now to find out the binding energy of products, we have to add X plus Z. So binding energy of X will be 90 multiplied by 8 plus Z. What will be the binding energy for Z? 30 multiplied by 5. So that means 720 plus 150. So you are having your answer as 870, which is the binding energy of product. Now you can see here, binding energy of products is less than the binding energy of reactants. So that means this cannot be the correct answer. There will not be any release of energy in this case. This is the correct, wrong statement, the wrong option. Similarly, you can check for X tends to Y plus Z, and you are again going to see that this is not the correct answer. So that means you are having only one correct answer, that is this, right? So this was the way to start up this question, to proceed in this question and to begin with this question. We are now done with the question number 1, and it's now time to see which will be the question number 2 of the session. Okay, so the question number 2 is having with us from the topic half-life. So I can read it out for you. The half-life of iodine I131, which is the mass number, is 8 days. Given a sample of this at time t equals to 0, we can assert that, what we can say? From these 4 options, we have to tell them which one is correct. So let us just say at t equals to 0, we have been given this sample. The half-life has been given as 8 days. So let me just write here half-life, that is capital T is 8 days. Now what you have to observe over here, option 1 says no nucleus will decay before T equals to 4 days. I just want to ask you whether it can be a correct option, because according to me, if the moment I will see this option, I would have crossed it out, because it cannot be the correct option. Why? The reason is that we know that there is a radioactive decay law, according to which we are having this relation with us, n equals to n naught e raised to the power minus lambda t. That means number of atoms, the number of nuclei left after disintegration is equals to n naught, that means the initial number of nuclei, multiplied by e raised to the power minus lambda t, where lambda is your decay constant. Now you can see here the disintegration is, or you can say the nuclei is disintegrating exponentially. Or decaying exponentially. You can see the relation, and from there you can say that this is disintegrating exponentially, because this is an exponential term. So that means what? That means the moment you are having your radioactive substance before you, it will start decaying. No matter what is the time, it will start decaying. So that means no nucleus will decay after T equals to 4 days. That cannot be the correct answer. So that means just remove it. Okay, so the option number B, again the no nucleus will decay before T equals to 8 days. 8 days is what? 8 days is your half-life. That means no decay will happen before the half-life. I cannot think that. We have learnt this theory, we have learnt this this major portion in the theory part, that the moment I can say this, that whether it is N naught, whether it is N naught by 4, the initial number of nuclei, whether it is 2 N naught, it will start decaying by the time in the exponential manner. That means it is having no relation with, right now, no relation with the half-life. It will start from the very beginning, that means from t equals to 0. That means it is again a wrong option. Let us check for, will decay before t equals to 16 days. This is all nuclei, not all nuclei. All nuclei will decay before t equals to 16 days. Now we have to check it out. Let me just tell you, if this was having its half-life as 8 days, and suppose initially it was N naught nuclei. So let me just ask you one thing. At one half-life, that means, let me just write it as N naught. At one half-life, that means after 8 days, it will become half, N naught by 2. Again after a half-life, that means again 8 days, what will happen? It will again get half. So that means it will become N naught by 4. That means in total 16 days, N naught has been reduced to N naught by 4. And in the option, what we are seeing, that in the 16 days, all nuclei will decay. That means your N will become 0. Is this happening? No, because we can see that we are having N naught by 4 after 16 days. So it cannot be the correct statement. So that means only one option left. It can be, it must be the correct answer. But again, for the convenience, we are going to check it out. Let me just mark a tick over here. That is for sure the correct answer. A given nucleus may decay at any time after t equals to 0. As the very beginning of the question, I am telling you, the moment you are having your nuclei with you, it will start decaying. The radioactive nuclei I am talking about. So that means in this equation also you will see that if you are going to put your, if you just want to put your t equals to infinity, at t equals to infinity, your equation will be n equals to n naught e raised to the power minus infinity. So e raised to the power minus infinity is what? It's 0. It approaches to 0. It is a very small value. So that means we can say the n naught is, the n is approaching to 0. That means from time t equals to 0 to time t equals to infinity, it can decay at any time, because we can see that n will approach to 0 when t will be infinity. So that means it can decay at any time, there is no restriction. So this must be the correct answer, guys, right? So now we are now done with the second question of the session. Let us just see what will be the third question for the session. Alright, so we are having the third question, and this question says that 22 neon nucleus, 22 is the mass number, definitely it can be the mass number, it is the mass number. After absorbing energy, it decays into 2 alpha particles and an unknown nucleus. The unknown nucleus is what? How would I know if I am not going to attempt this question, if I am not going to start this question? How would I know? So let me just begin with this question. We have to tell them which is the unknown nucleus. Let me just start by telling you this, that this neon has the atomic number equals to Z. Everybody knows the periodic table, and from there you can learn that atomic number of neon is it's 10. Z is the, yeah, it's atomic number, but its atomic number is 10. For neon, it's 10. Now in the question, they are saying that this neon is absorbing the energy, and after absorbing energy, it is decaying into 2 alpha particles and an unknown nucleus. So let me just write over here 2 alpha. Alpha particle is what? Nothing but the helium atom. So unknown nucleus. That means I am putting X over here. Now to find this value of X, what you can do? You know that in the process of alpha decay, what happens is, suppose it was having atomic number as Z 10 and the mass number as 22. In this case, because the alpha decay is going to happen, this will reduce by, this Z will be reduced by 2 and your mass number will be reduced by 4. As from the very beginning, I am repeating myself from the first day of the alpha decay. What do we mean by alpha decay? Let me just write again for you. This is the process of alpha decay, right or wrong? Right. So now we will see what will happen in this case. When the Z will be reduced by 2, that means Z will be 10 minus 2. And your, okay, so because they are having 2 alpha particle. So now let me just correct my statement from here. It will be reduced by Z minus 2, but the 2 time. So now earlier it was Z, that means 10, let me just write it 10, minus 2 times of the Z minus 2, or you can say it is reducing by 2. So you are having your Z as 10 minus 4, that is equals to 6. So the unknown nucleus, that what is going to be happen here, its atomic number will be 6. So if I talk about the mass number, we know that the mass number will be reduced by 4. So we will be writing here, this is 22 minus 2 into 4. So 22 minus 8. What will happen? 14. So from the very option of atomic number as 6, you might would have got an idea that the atom whose atomic number is 6 is nothing but the carbon. So that means it is, let me just show you one thing. Suppose this is X, this is your atomic number, this is your mass number. So it will be what? The atom whose atomic number is 6, whose mass number is 14, is nothing but the carbon. It is the isotope of carbon. Carbon 6C12 and 6C14. It is the isotope of carbon. So we will just move towards the question and just see which is the option that is correct. So yeah, we are going to definitely take over this, that is the B option, the carbon one, right? So now we have done with the carbon. Now let us just see what is the next question. We are quite happy right now because we have done the 3 questions with a very successful manner, and it was pretty easy questions. So no need to be so much of happy because we are not doing much of hard work. So I can see this question number 4 before me, that assume that the nuclear binding energy per nucleon versus the mass number is shown in the figure. Yes, I can definitely see that. This is the binding energy per nucleon and this is your mass number. Now we are having 4 options before us. We have to choose any one. No, let me just tell you, this is the question from the question number 4. You can have more than one correct answer. Question number 4 and question number 5, you will see it is the category where you will be having your more than one correct answer. Okay, so we are having 4 options before us. We have to choose any 2, or maybe it can be more than 2, maybe it can 1, maybe it can 3, or maybe it can that all the options are correct or all the options are wrong. But definitely all the options cannot be wrong, because we have to choose more than one correct answer. So that means all options can be correct, but there is no possibility that all the options can be wrong. So we will begin with the question now. We are having this, okay, again you can see this is binding energy per nucleon, this is mass number. So you are having your formula with you, how to find out, how to calculate the binding energy. You have to multiply this binding energy per nucleon with the mass number, because let me just tell you one short trick. This is not a, basically this is not a trick, this is a thing that can make you remember one thing. This is B by A, binding energy per nucleon. This is the mass number, that is A. Now if you are going to multiply A and A will be cancelled, you will be having your binding energy. That means this is the formula. Whenever you are having your binding energy per nucleon and the mass number, the moment you are going to multiply these two, you will be having your binding energy, isn't it? So now this was not the thing that I should tell you, everybody knows that, but still I just told you. Now let me just proceed with the question. I can see that there are 4 options in which 2 options is having fusion, 2 options are having fission. Now to just introduce with you what is the fusion and fission, let me just tell you, fusion is the combination of 2 lighter nuclei into a one stable heavier nuclei, and the fission is the disintegration of one heavier nuclei into 2 or different number of nuclei. That means in the case of fusion, suppose these are 2 masses, say M1 and M2, lighter masses, they are combining to give us a heavier nuclei, say capital M. This is the process of fusion, and in both the process, this is fusion, and in the case of fission, this is a heavier nuclei, say capital M. It is breaking down into 2, say M and M. It is breaking down into 2 components. This is the process of fission, and you can see that in both these processes, energy is going to release. In both the process. Now let me just tell you one thing. Whenever you are gaining energy, that will be your or you can say we are giving some energy in this any process, that energy will be negative. But if the energy is released, your energy will be positive. Now many of the students will be thinking that why ma'am is telling us this? Because my dear student, there is a relation between the question and this whatever I am writing. I am going to explain you with my logic. So in that logic, you must be knowing this definitely. So that is why I am going to tell you this. Now let me just watch out the options. In the option 1, fusion of 2 nuclei with mass number lying in the range of A between the range 1 to 50, it will release energy. Let me just see whether there is any energy or not. Because we have to consider the mass in the range of 1 to 50. Let me just consider, because the process is fusion. That means 2 nuclei will be coming and combining into 1. Is this the case of fusion? So let me just consider 2 masses as A equals to 20 and A equals to 30. Because we have to consider in the range of 1 to 50. So that is why I am just taking in the range of 1 to 50. Now binding energy in this case where mass is 20 will be, because you can see over here 0 to 100, your mass number is 100 and your binding energy per nucleon is 2. So that means you have to multiply this 20 by 2 to find out the binding energy. That means here it is 40. For the case of 30, what I will see that binding energy in this case will be 30 into 2, that is 60. Now when they are going to combine, the masses is going to combine, let me just write it as the A prime. This will be the mass of the combination of these two. That means 30 plus 20. I have shown you one process, these two nuclei combining into one. It is 30, it is 20, so it must be 50. So that means now your mass number is 50. So the binding energy should be what? Because again the mass number which is 50 is having this energy, binding energy per nucleon as 2. To find out the binding energy, multiply this mass number with 2. So we are having our mass number as 50, multiply it with 2 and you are having 100. Now we will see whether there is any energy released or not. We will see that earlier it was 40 plus 60 and now it is 100. So that means no gain or no release of energy. One thing that I have told you is that now you have to apply that. Consider this energy gained, this is minus E, and energy released, it is plus E, because here you are having your energy released. When two nuclei are combining and forming into one, that means in this case we have to apply the binding energy. We have to give them the energy to fuse together, and that energy will be equal to the binding energy. So that means this will be minus 60 and minus 40. So total energy in this case will be minus 40, minus 60, and because this is plus 100, let me just mark it more clear, this is plus 100. Oh sorry, again it has become a mess. So let me just write it very clearly, this is plus 100. So if you will be writing over here, you can see you are having your total energy is 0. That means no energy is being released. I can cancel out this option because I can see no energy in this case. Let me just pick it up, the question number, the option number 2. The fusion of two nuclei with the mass number lying in the range 51 to 100. Now we have to consider any two masses in this range 51 to 100. So we can choose any, let me just say whether it is 52, 53, or you can say 60, 70. Okay, so leave all the situation we are considering. A1 equals to 60, A2 equals to 70. Again, because this is the case of fusion, so your binding energy in this case will be 60 to 70. Now just let me consider this graph. Again 60 to 70 is having binding energy per nucleon as 2. So that means again we have to multiply it with 2. So multiply this by 2. In this case also 70 multiplied by 2. So 120 and 140. Definitely it will be negative because this energy will be released. Not released, we have to give this energy to fuse them together. So because we are providing this energy, that is why it is negative. So now the binding energy that will be released will be, in this case your mass number will be, A prime will be 60 plus 70. That means 130. Isn't it? So because you are having your mass number as 130, what will be your binding energy per nucleon? For 130, your binding energy per nucleon is 8. Now you are having your correct, just one thing. Because you are having your binding energy per nucleon as 8, so you have to multiply your mass number with 8. So what is the mass number? One zero 40. That means quite enough energy is being released over here, right? So this is positive. Now you can see here, since its binding energy is positive, if you are going to combine these, the final energy will be what? Minus 120 minus 140 plus 1040. So definitely it will come out to be positive. So that means energy is being released in this case. So that means this must be the correct option. Let me just tick a correct mark over here. Now the case of fission. For the case of fission, you can see here we have to consider the mass between 100 and 200. Let me just remove this from here. We are loving this board side and we are going to write over here only. So yes, the third option what I can see, the case of fission. Now you will see fission will be happening like this. One mass will be breaking down into two. And now what you will see here, they are breaking down into two equal fragments. We have to consider the mass between 100 and 200. So can I take 110? So okay, this is your 110 mass number. When it will be breaking down into two, it will be 55 and 55. Isn't it? Because it has to be break down into two, so that must be 55, 55. Now in this case, since your mass number is 110, your binding energy will be 110 lies here. So that means your binding energy per nucleon for this case will be 8. So you have to multiply this with 8. So 110 multiplied by 8, 880. And the binding energy for this case, that means for 55, 55. Now you will see here, this must be positive because in this case energy is going to be released. So that means this is positive. Now binding energy for 55. In this case binding energy is 55. So that means it lies in the range of 0 to 100. That means you have to multiply this with 2. So your binding energy will be 55 multiplied by 2, that is 110. And for your B part, say this is A, this is B, this is for A part, this is for B part. Again your binding energy will be 55 multiplied 2, that is 110. So that means your total energy in this case will be, let me just tell you one thing now, because this is breaking down into the fragments. Now what will happen? Because we want the energy to be released. We want the energy to come out to be positive. So that means will it come positive or negative? Whatever will it come, just let me do one thing. Let me just tell you one thing. In the case of fission, the fragment is breaking down into two. That means you have to give energy to this. So let me just correct myself. If you are giving energy to this, it should be negative. And because when they are getting fragmented, the energy will be released. So that means that will be positive. So just minus minus and this will be plus plus. Minus 180 plus 220. Definitely your answer will be in negative. So is this correct or wrong? Correct or not? This cannot be correct because for getting the energy to be released, your energy should be positive. That means the same situation. That means what will happen? Because we know that more than one option can be correct. So one option we have found the correct. So that means definitely it should be the correct one. but for the convenience we are going to check it again. Let me just see their mass range. The mass number range has been given into 200 and 260. So that means what will happen? Let me just remove it. In this case, what I will do, I will consider the mass in the range of 200 to 260. Let me just consider the mass as 220. Now, if you are having your mass number as 220, so what you have to do? You have to divide. Okay, let me just consider this as 240. That would be easy. So it will be break down into two, that is 120 and 120. Now what will happen? In the case of binding energy, in this case will be, because we have considered 240, so that means 240 will come in the range of 4. That means your binding energy per nucleon is 4. So you have to multiply this 240 by 4, 960, and that will be negative because we have to give this energy to make the fission happen. Now because we are having our fragments as having mass number 120, 120. So the binding energy in this case will be 120. Let us just see, 120 is coming in this range. So that means binding energy per nucleon is 8. So that means multiply it with 8. Now this is what? What you have to do, this is for second, this is for 1 and this is for 2. In both the cases, was this correct? 240 into 4, 040, 4416 and 960, and again it is 960. Then what will happen? If you are finding the total energy, then it will be 960 plus 960 minus 960, isn't it? This is minus, these both are plus, positive. So 1 will be cancelled and you are having your answer in the positive, very much positive. So that means definitely the energy will be going to be released from here. So yeah, we are having more than 2 correct answers, and these are this and this. This is the way to do the question. I have done this question on the board just to explain you, but in the exam you are not having so much of time that you are going to do in this manner. You should be in the regular basis of practice, then only you can do it on the tips. That means if you are doing it regularly, if you are practicing it regularly, then only you can have no problem in guessing the correct answer, right? So now let me just move towards the next question. And the next question says that the potential applied to an X-ray tube is increased. As a result, in the emitted radiation, what will happen? We have been given 4 options. We have to choose more than one. Again, it is more than one correct answer type question. So yeah. We are having this relation for X-ray. If you would have learnt about X-ray, you would be knowing this, that the wavelength and the voltage is having a relation like this. Now because I can see here the potential applied to an X-ray tube is increased. So you can see from the relation, if V is increased, definitely there is a inverse relation. Lambda will be going to decrease. So that means the minimum wavelength increases, the minimum wavelength decreases. What will happen? V is increasing, so V will, lambda will decrease. So you have to correct this. The minimum wavelength will decrease. Now because wavelength is decreasing, what will happen? You know that E equals to h nu and nu equals to C by lambda. Or you can say there is an inverse relation between frequency and lambda. Now because lambda is decreasing, so that means frequency will increase, and since frequency will increase, your energy will increase. Now we will say that because energy is increasing, so definitely intensity will be increasing. Now the reason I can say for this will be intensity will increase, because intensity is what? Energy per unit area per unit time. This is your intensity. So definitely if energy is increasing, so your intensity will be increasing. So that means what? Intensity increases, intensity remains unchanged. It will not remain unchanged if the wavelength is decreasing. So that means intensity increases. So yeah, we have done this question, and now we will be beginning with the 6th question. Till then, you can just note down, and then we will be starting the next question. Okay, so now look at the question number 6 of the session. So the question number 6 is an assertion reason type question, in which you will see an assertion written over here, a reason written over here, and then we have to tell them whether this reason is the correct explanation of this assertion or not. As you can see in these options A, B, C, D and E. Now let me read the question before you. Nuclear density is almost same for all nuclei. Is this true or not? I can say that this is true. Let me just explain you how. Because you have having your formula with you, and that is R equals to R naught A raised to the power 1 by 3. Now you know that if we are talking about the density, the nuclear density, density is what? Density is mass upon volume. And if I talk about the total mass of the nucleus, that would be mass of one neutron multiplied by mass multiplied by the nucleon, you can say, or you can say the atomic number. So I will be writing this mass as m into capital A. That means one mass multiplied by the number of nucleons, right? So this will be the total mass of the nucleus divided by the volume. Volume will be 4 by 3 pi r cube. Now because you are having this equation with you, that is R equals to R naught A raised to the power 1 by 3, where A is your mass number, R is the radius, and R naught is a constant value which is 1.2 Fermi. So let me just write over here Ma upon 4 by 3 into pi r cube. Now you have to make a cube of this complete equation number 1. So r cube will be r naught cube into a raised to the power 3 multiplied by 1 by 3. So that means you will be having r naught cube multiplied by a. So now you can see here A and A are getting cancelled. You are having your mass, you are having your density in the range of m 4 by 3 pi r naught cube. Now as I told you that r naught is a constant value which is 1.2 Fermi. So let me just write here r naught is 1.2 Fermi. Fermi is what? 10 raised to the power minus 15 meter. Now just put this value into this equation to find the density of nucleus. So the density will be mass. Now you have to put the mass of either neutron or proton. You know that their mass are approximately equal. So we will write it as 1.6 into 10 raised to the power minus 27 divided by 4 by 3 pi r cube. 4 by 3 into pi. Pi is 22 by 7, or you can either use it 3.14. R naught cube. So you are having your R naught as 1.2 Fermi. So put this value 1.2 into 10 raised to the power minus 15 cube. Now you will see that if you are going to put all these values, your density will come out to be 2.3 into 10 raised to the power 17 kilogram per meter cube. And this value will remain fixed for all the nuclei. Because in this formula, what you can observe over here, your density is independent of the mass number. So I can write here as, since density is independent of mass number, and also you have seen that this is a constant value. So we can say that density of all nuclei will remain same. So that means this is a true statement. Okay, so let me just deduct all these options which were saying that A is not a correct statement. So both assertion, reason are false. This must be false. This must be a wrong statement. If assertion is false but reason is true, so that means we also have to reduce this statement, reduce this option, because we know that this is a true statement. Now we are having three options with us. If assertion is true, if both assertion, reason are true, but the reason is not a correct explanation, and if both are true and reason is also a correct explanation. Let me just tell you the reason that has been given over here, that size of nucleus is proportional to A raised to the power 1 by 3. Yes, it is a correct statement, but to ask for the reason, whether it is the correct reason or you can say the correct explanation for this statement, I would say no. Why? I will tell you the reason in a bit, but let me just tell you, this is also a true statement. You can see that size of nucleus is what? You can denote the size of nucleus by the radius. So that means radius is proportional to A by 3, A raised to the power 1 by 3. So you can see over here, R is proportional to A raised to the power 1 by 3. That means size is proportional to A raised to the power 1 by 3. That means this is the correct statement. So we can say that this is a true statement. So right here we can say both assertion and reason is true. So that means this option will also be deducted. Now you are having two options before you. If both are true and reason is a correct explanation, if both are true and reason is not a correct explanation. Let me just tell you, this is not a correct explanation for this statement, for this assertion. Why? Because we know that we are saying nuclear density always remains same. The reason is that in the nucleus we are having number of protons and number of neutrons, and we know that their mass is approximately same. So if I am having this formula with me, density equals to mass by volume, and I am saying that this mass remains same, so that means density should be same. But yes, the number of neutrons and number of protons will be changed in the mass number. So that means this mass will be little bit changed for all the nuclei, because we know that the mass is depending upon the number of neutrons and number of protons inside the nucleus. So that means from this relation basically we can say that since density is proportional to m, so that means density will remain same. But yes, because number of protons and neutrons change in the nuclei, so that means we can say, yeah, this is not a direct relation with the mass number, relation of density with the mass number. But yes, we can say that this reason that they are giving us is not a correct explanation, because it is depending upon the number of neutrons and protons inside the nucleus, but not the size of nucleus, not on this relation. So that is why we can say this is not a correct explanation, but yes, this is a true statement. So from both of these we can say, if both assertion and reason are true, but the reason is not a correct explanation for the assertion, so that means B option will be correct option. Alright. So now we are done with question number 6, and let us just proceed towards the question number 7 of this JEE Main pattern. Okay, so let me just see what is the question number 7. Yeah, so the question number 7 is a match the following type question, where you have been given two tables before you and you have to match A, B, C with P, Q, R, or you can say with 1, 2, 3, right? So now let me just start with this, and as I see this option, I can say, yeah, this is the very easy one. Because in the JEE main pattern, this is not mandatory that you are going to find the toughest question. It might be the case that you are having one simple question before you and you are just running your mind in the way that this question is going to be tougher, and you are just solving it by that method. Because this is the JEE main pattern, so the question level should be this. But my dear students, there are some cases, there are few questions where the question level is this, and you are running your mind for the question level this. So you have to understand, you have to just make a comparison between the easy level and the medium level question. So yeah, let me just proceed with the question. Okay, so in the radioactivity number of nuclei, this is the radioactive number N of two radioactive substances 1 and 2 are shown in the figure. Match the following. This is denoted as capital T. So here capital T, I can say this is nothing but the half-life. Now in the question, let me just see what are they asking. We have to tell them what will be the initial activity of. Initial activity of 1 is more, 2 is more, or nothing can be said about this. Half-life of 1 is more, 2 is more, or nothing can be said. Decay constant, again the same manner. So that means we have to match them with these three. Now let me just see, this is my T half, that means the half-life. Now you can say that since the half-life that I can easily see from this graph, half-life of 2 is more, because this 2 is here and this 1 is here. So that means is this more or is this more? Definitely 2 is more. So that means we can say half-life of 2 is more. So that means B will be having second option. Now as I know one relation before me, and that relation is T equals to 0.693 by lambda, or you can write it as log 2 by lambda. This is the relation that everybody knows, right? So because we are having this, T is inversely proportional to lambda. Now what you can see here, since T4, let me just see here, since T4, 2 is more, T2 is greater than T1. So definitely since T is inversely proportional to lambda, so lambda 1 should be greater than lambda 2, isn't it? Because you have seen that there is an inverse relation between these two, and from the graph I can see since T1, T2 is greater than T1, so definitely lambda 1 should be greater than lambda 2. And here lambda is what? Your decay constant. So that means we are going to say decay constant of 1 is more. So that means this is the C option. Definitely we can say that A must be third option, but no. As we have done the previous chapter questions and we have seen one thing over there, we have arrived with some question where you have multiple number of answer for one particular option. That means half-life of either 1 is more and either 2 is more can be correct answer. That means you have to choose and you have to match with all these three. You don't have to consider this thing that if A is 1, if B is 2, definitely C is 3. This is not the way that you are going to deal with such questions. You have to check and you have to verify with all the options that are available for you, right? So now let me just verify for the A option, initial activity. So let me just tell you activity. We denote this activity as either A or R, isn't it? And we know that R equals to lambda n, right? So what I can say over here is for lambda 1, or you can say, let me just say, since lambda 1 is greater than lambda 2, so what will happen? Let me just say lambda 1 is greater than lambda 2. But now if I take the case of this n, in this case you can see from the graph, just look, come with me, n for 2 is more. This is n for 1, this is n for 2. Now you can see for 2, n is more. So we will write here n2 is greater than n1. Now if you will be putting both these equation into this, r equals to lambda n. So first of all you are seeing that lambda 1 is greater. Secondly you are seeing that n2 is greater. So that means there is a confusion. One thing is being greater in this, second thing is being lesser in this. So that means nothing can be said for this. So we will say that nothing can be said for the initial activity. So that means it is verifying with this. A is this. I hope you guys would understand what I was trying to say you, what I was trying to making you understand, right? So now we are done with the question number 7, and finally we are having one correct answer for all these table 1 options. Now let me just proceed to the question number 8. Okay. So the question number is, yeah, now you are having your comprehension type question. From question number 8 to question number 10, you are having one passage before you, and from this passage you have to choose all the answers of the questions. That will be question number 8, 9 and 10, right? So now let me just see what is first question number 8. But before studying the question, let me just read out this passage before you. We have been given 2 radioactive nuclei, A and B. So let me just write over here, this is A and this is B. Both convert into a stable nucleus C. We are going to just make a diagram side by side. A is converting into C and B is converting into C. Let me just write it like this. So this is B, this is A, and this is converting into C, B is converting into C. Now what next? Nucleus A converts into C after emitting 2 alpha particles and 3 beta particles. That means if nucleus A is being converted into C, what will happen? 2 alpha particles will be coming out. This is the alpha particle and the number of particle is 2. And I can see 3 beta particles are coming out. So we can write here 3 beta. And you know that beta particle is also written as, isn't it? So you can change it or you can write it as 3 into, this is only your wish. Okay, so let us just see now for the nucleus B. Nucleus B converts into C after emitting 1 alpha particle. So 1 into alpha particle, that is 2He4. 1 alpha particle and 5 beta particles. So let me just write over here 5 beta particles. Okay, so now at time t equals to 0, nuclei of A and A are 4 and 0. You can just write over here That means at T0, n equals to 4n naught. And for the case of B nuclei, we will see that at time t equals to 0, B are having n naught atoms. B are n naught nuclei. So we will write here n equals to n naught. Now here we have been given the half-life of A into conversion of C is 1 minute and that of B is 2 minutes. So let me just write over here, this is 2 minutes, this is 1 minute. So we will be writing the half-life of A, this is 1 minute, and the half-life of, just denoted by TA and TB because we are dealing with A and B. So you can write it as TA and TB as 1 minute and 2 minutes. Now initially number of C nuclei are 0. Okay. So now we will see what is question number 8 before us. Let me just remove this from here. We have noted down all the important points that has been given in the question, in the passage. Now we will move towards the question. So yeah, we are having this question before you that if the atomic numbers and the mass numbers of A and B are Z1, Z2 and A1, A2 respectively, then we have to tell them which option is correct. This or this. Let me just proceed for the question number 8. You can see over here that if I talk about the C, let me just write the C as Z and A. Again, now because you can see here A earlier was having n naught number of atoms, or I can say the ZC in this case. That means the atomic number of C will be atomic number of A, that means ZA, or you can write it as, because it has been given the atomic numbers and mass number are A and B, of A and B are Z1, Z2 and A1, A2 respectively. So I will be using this term. So instead of A, I will be using Z1. We are now dealing with the A. So let me just write for A. In the case of A, where the nucleus is being converting into a stable nucleus C by emitting 2 alpha particles and 3 beta particles. So that means that ZC here will be Z1 minus, because from here the alpha particle is being deducted. So that means 2 particles of alpha. That means Z will be, when you have seen the case of alpha decay, let me just tell you once again, what do we mean by alpha decay? Suppose there is an atom before you, and when it is converting to alpha decay, what will happen? You will be having Z minus 2 and A minus 4 plus alpha particle. That means whenever you are having your alpha decay, your Z will be reduced by 2, your A will be reduced by 4. So now here I am dealing with Z case, that means the atomic number. So I can see that Z is reducing by 2. So that means I will be, what I should write over here, minus 2 of your alpha particles. Charge is reduced by 2 and already there are 2 particles, alpha particle. So 2 multiplied by 2 and minus sign because they are reducing. And we know that, let me just again write for beta decay. In the case of beta decay, you will see, are you guys able to see this? Okay. So you will be having Z plus 1 and A will remain same. Now in this case, because you are saying electron is being removed, so that means one positivity will be added in your atomic number. So that means Z will be increased by 1. Now you have to increase your Z, that means you have to make an addition sign over here, and because there are 3 beta particles, so that means 3 into 1. You can write it as 3 into 1. Right? Now we are having our ZC for the case of A as Z1 minus 4 plus 3, or you can write it as Z1 minus 1. Now for the case of B, if I will see that this is a case of B. For the case of B, just took this condition, just watch out for this condition. B is converting into C by emitting one alpha particle. So that means ZC in this case will be ZA, that means ZB minus 1 alpha particle. That means 1 into charge of alpha particle is 2. So we are putting this charge over here. Now 5 beta particle. So the charge of beta particle is 1. Because this is being added. So that is why we have used plus sign. As I have shown you what is the case of alpha decay and beta decay. So that means ZC from this case will be Z2 minus 2 plus 5. Or you can say Z2 minus plus 3. Now you are having your 2 ZC before you. One is this and another one is this. You can write here as ZC. So because these both are the one stable nuclei, we can compare them both. That means Z1 minus 1 will be equal to Z2 plus 3. I will just use it here. Z1 minus 1 equals to Z2 plus 3. Now you can see here Z1 minus Z2 has came out to be 3 plus 1, and that is 4. Now let us just verify from the option whether this is the correct answer or not. So okay, we have been given Z1 minus Z2 equals to 6. So that means this is not the correct answer. Now let me just verify for A1 minus A2. Okay, so A1 minus A2, here we have done for the atomic number. Now we are going to do for the mass number. And you can see here, in the case of mass number alpha decay, your mass number will be reduced by 4. But in the case of beta decay, you can see your mass number will not get affected. So definitely we will be doing the same. Let me just remove it from here. Okay, so we are considering the case of A for mass number. Now you can see here mass number of C, AC will be what? Mass number of A, that means A1. So A1 minus, you are having 2 alpha particles. So 2 into 4, because the mass number is reduced by 4. So minus 4. And because there are 2 alpha particles, so we are multiplying it by 2. So minus 2 into 4, but no, anything not be there. For the case of A, because beta particles do not affect the mass number, so we will not write the mass number over here for the beta particle. Now let me just consider for the case of, this will be A1 minus 8. Let us just see for the case of B. Again for AC, we will be having A2 minus, now here you are having 1 alpha particle. So you will be writing 1 into 4, because the mass number of helium is 4. So you are having your A2 minus 4 as your AC. That means the mass number of C. Now because you are having your mass number of C as this and this, now you have to compare these two equations, and on comparing you will see that A1 minus 8 is equals to A2 minus 4. Now when you will solve this, you will see that A1 minus A2 is minus 4 plus 8. That means A1 minus A2 is 4. This is your correct answer, right? Now I don't know whether it is a correct answer or not. I have to verify this from the option whether A1 minus A2 is correct or not. So yeah, I can see that A1 minus A2 is the correct answer, right? And because they are saying both are correct, so that must be wrong. Both are wrong, that must be wrong. So you are having one correct answer with you, and this is this. Now we are done with the question number 8, and we have to see what is the question number 9. This question is again based on the same passage, and we have to deal with the same conditions. So let me just not rub this because we are having the same thing, and we will now proceed for the question number 9. Okay. So what are the number of nuclei of C when number of nuclei of A and B are equal? So that means they are saying that when Na will be equals to Nb, what will be Nc? Is they asking same or not? Yeah, they are asking us the same thing. Now I can see over here, first of all we should know when should Na and Nb are equal. Whenever they are equal, at that point we have to find out the value of Nc. So first of all we will see what will be the rate of disintegration, how and when the Na and Nb are going to be equal. For the case of A, we will see that initially there were 4 N0 atoms or nuclei. Initially it was 4 N0. After one half-life, that is 1 minute, it will be becoming half. So that means it will be 2 N0. Again after one half-life, it would become half. So it will become N0. After again one half-life, it will become N0 by 2. And again after a half-life, it will become N0 by 4. Now let me just tell you why I am stopping this chain at this position. Because I know that if I will be considering the case of B, I am having its time, that is the half-life as 2 minutes. So 2 minutes, I know that after 2 minutes what will happen, let me just consider. Initially there were N0 atoms, nuclei. After 2 minutes, it will become N0 by 2. But from here I cannot see that this 2 minute has N0 by 2 atoms. So after 2 minutes Na and Nb are not equal. So that is why again after 2 minutes we have seen that it will become N0 by 4. So that means total after 4 minutes this nuclei of B has reached its position as N0 by 4, and also the A has reached N0 by 4 after 4 minutes, 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. So that means after 4 minutes you are having your atoms, the nuclei as N0 by 4. Now you can see here after 4 minutes your Na and Nb are equal. Na equals to Nb. Now in the question they were asking that at that time when Na and Nb are equal, what will be the number of nuclei of C, right? So we have to tell them for the nuclei of C. Now let me just tell you, nuclei of C will be that nuclei which will be the difference of their initial sum. Let me just explain you what I am saying. Initially what were A atoms, A nuclei? It was reduced by N0 by 4. From 4 N0, from 4 N0 it has been reduced to N0 by 4. And for the case of B, from initially they were N naught and they had reduced to N naught by 4. That means these much atoms, the difference of these N naught 4 N naught minus N naught 4, they had been converted into the C after this decay, right? So that means we can say also similarly the case will be for C or for the B, N naught to N naught by 4. The difference of that means N naught minus N naught by 4, that would be the number of nuclei of C, right? So we will be saying that, let me just write over here, for A case I will be writing as, just let me write NC, that would be initially for 4 N naught minus N naught by 4 plus B were N naught minus finally they were N naught by 4. This will be the number of nuclei of C. This is the total number of atom that has been decayed in the case of A. This is the total number of nuclei that has been decayed in the process of B. So this will be the total number of nuclei for C. So let us just solve for this. 4 N naught plus N naught, that means 5 N naught minus N naught by 4 minus N naught by 4, that means minus 2 N naught by 4, or you can say minus N naught by 2, right? So now if you will solve this, you will be having 5 to the 10 minus 1, that is 9 N naught by 2. This is your NC. That means your total number of nuclei for C. So we can just verify whether this is correct or not. We are having 9 N naught by 2. So yeah, I can see, okay, so option number C is the correct answer for this, because you are having 2 N naught, 3 N naught, 5 N naught by 2 and 9 N naught by 2, and we have gained our answer as this. So that means this must be the correct answer, because we are doing it in the correct approach, with the correct way, with the correct manner, so that must be correct. So this is the correct answer. Okay, so now we are done with 2 questions from this passage, that is 8 and 9. Let us just see what is the next question, and that will be the last question of the session. That is the question number 10, and okay, we are having that at what time the rate of disintegration if A and B are equal. At what time? Time we have to find. Rate of disintegration of A and B are equal. That must be off. So at what time rate of disintegration of A and B are equal? So we have to tell the time. Now let me just tell you one thing. If we are speaking about the rate of disintegration, there is one thing that should be definitely come to your mind, and that one thing is the activity. Because we know that rate of disintegration can be written as, let me just write for this, R equals to lambda n, isn't it? Now for the case of, you can say radioactive decay law, n equals to n naught e raised to the power minus lambda t. And you know that for the case of A, initially there were 4 N naught atoms. So I will be writing 4 N naught in place of this. So N will be equals to 4 N naught e raised to the power minus lambda A, because now I am talking about the A case, T, right? So you are having this with you. And for the case, this is what? Is this T, that is half-life or not? Because in the question we have been given the half-life also. For A, let me just write over here. For A, half-life is, this is T, that is 1 minute. And initially there were 4 N naught atoms, nuclei. For the case of B, we were having capital T as 2 minutes and initially there were n naught atoms. We are going to use these things in the question. Now we are having 4 n naught e raised to the power minus lambda a t. If I just consider the case of what? B. This was for A and this is for B. So that would be n equals to n naught e raised to the power minus lambda B into T. Alright. Now you are having one thing for you. You know that time, if you are speaking about the half-life, your half-life would be T equals to log T log 2 by lambda A. This is for A case and this will be for B case. Now what do you know from here? You know that lambda A is this given or not? Suppose it has not been given. Yeah, definitely it has not been given, but we know that TA. That means we know that lambda A is log 2 by TA and TA has been given as 1 minute. From here you can say your lambda B will be log 2 by TB. TB is given as 2 minutes. So you are having your lambda B as log 2 by 2. Now what you can do over here, you can put this value into this equation and put the value of lambda B into that equation. What we will be having, we will be just considering that. But before that, you can just take a note of this, that we are having the one thing before us. We are going to use two equations and then we are going to solve for this. This is a pretty easy question, but before going further in this path or in this way, in this manner, we should be firstly noting it down and then we will be starting it, okay? Okay, so if you would have noted it down, then I can show you what is the beauty of the question. We have found out two things, that is n and lambda A. Here we have found n and lambda B. In the question we have been given the rate of disintegration of A and B are equal. That means this R1 and R2 will be equal. Let me just write here R1 equals to lambda N1, R2 equals to lambda N2. And since it has been given that this is equals to, this is lambda A and this is lambda B, don't forget that. So we are having this with us. What we have to do is, we just have to put lambda and n that we have got for A into this equation and lambda B and NB into this equation, and we have to equate them. So let us just do for this lambda into N1. Lambda A is log 2 upon 1 into N1. You can see over here n for the case of A is 4 n naught e raised to the power minus lambda A t. So put this here, 4 n naught e raised to the power minus lambda A into t. This is equals to lambda B into N2. Your lambda B is this and your N2 is this. N2 is for B. So we are going to put it, lambda B is log 2 by 2 and your n is n naught e raised to the power minus lambda B into t. Now what you can observe from here, log 2 will be getting cancelled. N naught, they will also be cancelled it out. So we are going to cancel them. Now you can see over here, if we will bring this 2 here, you will be having 8 equals to e raised to the power minus lambda bt divided by e raised to the power minus lambda a into t. So that means you are having e raised to the power minus lambda b, or you can write it as, because if it is in minus, if it will go into the numerator, that will become positive. That will become positive. So we are having lambda a minus lambda b into t as 8. Now you are having this equation before you. To find out this time, because in the question we have to find the time. To find out this time, we have to take log of both sides. So taking log on both sides, you will be having lambda A minus lambda B into T equals to log 8. Right? So you can write this lambda A minus lambda B. Okay, so what you can do over here, if you are taking log of this, you are having this log 2 as, you can write it like this, 2 raised to the power 3, 2 cube, that is 8. So now you can represent this log as 3 log 2. Let me just write over here. Okay, so if I will be taking the log, I am having lambda A minus lambda BT equals to log 8. Now lambda A minus lambda BT equals to log 3 log 2. Now to find out the time, we are having T equals to 3 log 2 divided by lambda A minus lambda B. Now what we can do from here, lambda A minus lambda B. Lambda A is, you have found out that it was log 2 and lambda B was log 2 by 1 minus lambda B was log 2 by, lambda B was what? We have removed this lambda 2 from here, it was lambda 2 by 2, lambda B. Now what you can do from here, you are having 3 log 2, or you can take this log 2 as common from here and you are having 1 minus 1 by 2. This log 2 and log 2 will be cancelled and you will be having 3 divided by half. You will be having 3 divided by 1 by 2. And if you will solve this, you will be having T equals to 6 minutes. This must be your answer. 3 divided by 1 minus 1 by 2, that is 1 by 2. So definitely you will be having T equals to 6 minutes. Right? So now let us just verify whether there is any option in the question or not. So yeah, I can see that option number B is the correct answer of the question. So yeah, we have done this in the very beautiful manner and we have done it very correctly. So we are done with the JEE main pattern for the chapter nuclei. We will be meeting again in the next session where we are going to solve together the JEE advanced pattern question. Till then, just keep practicing, just keep revising what we have covered till now. Just take care of yours. Bye bye.